Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more amazing HFY stories. Hit the bell icon to get notified about our latest uploads. First contact. Dr. Evelyn Carter's boots sank into the soft, iridescent soil of Zia Prime as she stepped off the diplomatic vessel. The alien sun cast a pale blue light across the crystalline towers of the Zion capital, making it look like a city built from dreams. Her heart raced, not from the beauty of the alien world but from the enormity of her mission. The Zions were renowned across the galaxy for their advancements in genetic manipulation, their shimmering beauty, and their near-immortal lifespans. Yet, behind their flawless facade lay a secret. Their population was dwindling. Cloning, their preferred method of reproduction, had led to genetic stagnation. But the Zions, proud and xenophobic, refused to consider alternative methods. Evelyn had been sent by the United Earth Coalition with a bold proposal: to share humanity's genetic knowledge and reproductive techniques in exchange for Zion technology. It was a long shot, but humanity had learned to thrive on audacity. As she approached the towering council chambers, Evelyn felt the weight of countless eyes on her. Zions, with their shimmering skin and bioluminescent patterns, lined the streets, watching her with a mix of curiosity and disdain. Among them, one figure stood out, a tall Zion with a cloak of shifting colors and piercing iridescent eyes. This was Veletris, the supreme geneticist and leader of Zia Prime. "Dr. Carter," Veletris greeted, her voice like a chime in the wind. "Your presence here is an anomaly much like your species." Evelyn held her ground. "Supreme geneticist, I come not to intrude but to offer a partnership. Humanity has faced genetic challenges before and emerged stronger. We believe our experience can help your people." Veletris's expression remained unreadable. "Human reproduction, chaotic, imprecise, and messy. We abandoned such inefficiencies eons ago. Why would we regress?" "Because sometimes chaos breeds resilience," Evelyn countered. "Nature's imperfections are its greatest strength." The council session was tense. Evelyn presented data, shared stories of human adaptability, and emphasized the potential for cooperation. But the Zion's disdain was palpable. Veletris in particular seemed unimpressed. As the session adjourned, Evelyn felt a twinge of defeat. But before she could leave, a younger Zion scientist approached her. His bioluminescent patterns flickered with intrigue. "I am Sarlex," he said softly. "Your ideas, they intrigue me. Perhaps there is merit in exploring them further." Rejection of biology ****. The sterile glow of the Zion Research Lab contrasted sharply with Evelyn Carter's sense of urgency. A sea of translucent consoles and pulsing light conduits surrounded her as she stood next to Sarlex. The young Zion scientist worked deftly, his six-fingered hands manipulating holographic projections of genetic sequences. Evelyn watched him in awe, but her thoughts kept circling back to Veletris's cold dismissal. "How do you endure her arrogance?" Evelyn muttered, breaking the silence. Sarlex tilted his head, his bioluminescent patterns flickering faintly. "Veletris is not arrogant without reason. She embodies centuries of Zion knowledge and perfection. To her your methods must seem barbaric." "Barbaric?" Evelyn said, arching an eyebrow. "We call it life. Messy, unpredictable, and full of potential." Sarlex paused, his glowing eyes locking onto hers. "You humans cling to your imperfections as virtues. It is perplexing. Yet there is a part of me that finds it fascinating." Before Evelyn could respond, a soft chime indicated an incoming message. A hologram of Veletris materialized in the room, her features as serene and unyielding as carved glass. "Sarlex," she began, her voice as cold as the void, "I have been informed of your unsanctioned interactions with the human delegate. Cease this nonsense immediately." Her glowing eyes shifted to Evelyn. "Dr. Carter, this experiment of diplomacy ends now. You have overstayed your welcome." Evelyn's frustration bubbled over. "With all due respect, Supreme Geneticist, your species is on the brink of collapse. Your cloning process is failing. Your population is dwindling. How can you not see that collaborating with us could save your people?" Veletris's gaze hardened. "We do not need saving. Especially not by primitive breeders. Our genetic stagnation is a temporary hurdle, one we will overcome with our own brilliance. Good day, Dr. Carter." The hologram disappeared, leaving Evelyn fuming. She turned to Sarlex, her voice sharp. "Are all your leaders this blind, or is it just her?" Sarlex hesitated, his bioluminescence dimming. "It is not blindness but fear. Veletris fears what she cannot control. And natural reproduction is uncontrollable." Later that evening, Evelyn and Sarlacc retreated to a secluded research chamber, one of the few places on Zia Prime where they could work without constant surveillance. Sarlacc began explaining the intricacies of Zion genetics, his voice low but tinged with enthusiasm. Our cloning process is based on perfect replication, he explained, displaying a shimmering strand of Zion DNA. But perfection breeds stagnation. Over centuries we've lost the ability to adapt. Our clones are flawless but fragile. They lack the vitality your species exhibits. Evelyn nodded, piecing together the problem. And because you've removed natural selection from the equation, your genome has stopped evolving. It's like running the same program over and over until it breaks. Sarlacc's glowing patterns flared with acknowledgement. Precisely. But to convince Veletris and the Council, we would need proof. A hybrid being that combines the strengths of both our species? Evelyn hesitated. The ethical implications of creating a hybrid life form were daunting. But the Zion's survival, and the potential alliance with Earth, depended on it. We'll need to be careful, she said finally. If we do this, it has to be done right. No shortcuts, no risks. 4 weeks, Evelyn and Sarlacc worked in secret, combining their knowledge to create the first hybrid Zion human genome. The process was painstaking. Human DNA was chaotic and robust, while Zion DNA was elegant but delicate. Finding a balance required countless iterations and sleepless nights. During their work, Evelyn and Sarlacc grew closer. Their initial skepticism of each other gave way to mutual respect, and eventually a deep bond. Evelyn found herself fascinated not just by Sarlacc's brilliance, but by his quiet determination to challenge his society's rigid norms. One evening, as they reviewed the latest results, Sarlacc turned to Evelyn. You risk much for us, Dr. Carter. What? Your people could thrive without us. Evelyn sighed, leaning back in her chair. Maybe. But humanity knows what it's like to stand on the edge of extinction. We've faced wars, plagues, and disasters, and every time we survived because we worked together. I can't stand by and watch your people fade away when we might be able to help. Sarlacc's patterns brightened, a sign of emotion. Your species, you value life even when it is not your own. That is rare. Their breakthrough came on a quiet night, just as Evelyn was beginning to doubt their efforts. The hybrid embryo they'd created began to stabilize, its genetic structure holding firm under their tests. It was a marvel, strong, adaptable, and full of potential. Sarlacc's patterns shimmered with excitement. This could be the answer. A being that embodies the best of both our species. Evelyn's heart swelled with pride and relief. But her elation was short-lived. The next morning, Veletris herself stormed into their lab, flanked by Zion enforcers. What is the meaning of this? Veletris demanded, her glowing eyes narrowing as she took in the hybrid embryo displayed on the console. Evelyn stepped forward, refusing to back down. This is proof that our species can achieve something incredible together. Your people don't have to face extinction. We can help you thrive again. Veletris's bioluminescence flared angrily. You dare to tamper with our genetics? To defile our purity with your primitive biology? This is an abomination. Sarlacc stepped forward, his voice steady but firm. No, Supreme Geneticist. This is evolution. Our cloning has brought us to the brink. If we do not adapt, we will die. This hybrid could be our salvation. For a moment, the room was silent. Then Veletris's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. You have violated every law of our people. This ends now. As the enforcers moved to confiscate their research, Evelyn made a decision. She grabbed a data crystal containing the hybrid's genetic blueprint and turned to Sarlacc. Run, she whispered. A glimpse of hope ***. The air on Zia Prime felt heavier than ever as Evelyn and Sarlacc darted through the labyrinthine streets of the Zion capital. The crystalline spires loomed overhead, their glowing tips casting fractured light onto the ground. Evelyn clutched the data crystal tightly in her hand, its edges pressing into her palm like a lifeline. Do you have a plan? She asked breathlessly, her eyes scanning for pursuers. Sarlacc glanced over his shoulder, his glowing patterns fluctuating with anxiety. We need to reach the outer rings. There's a network of independent researchers there, Zions who reject the Council's authority. They'll protect the data. Let's hope they're as rebellious as you are, Evelyn muttered, following him into a dimly lit alley. Hours later, they arrived at an unassuming facility hidden beneath the jagged cliffs of the outer rings. The entrance was a simple archway carved into the crystalline rock, but the faint glow of bioluminescent patterns on its surface indicated it was no ordinary refuge. Sarlacc approached the door, placing his hand on a shimmering panel. After a tense moment, the door slid open, revealing a sprawling underground laboratory. Inside, dozens of Zions moved purposefully, their bioluminescent patterns flashing in intricate sequences of communication. Unlike the pristine and orderly labs of the capital, this space hummed with the energy of unorthodox experimentation. A tall, weathered Zion stepped forward, his patterns shifting in a way that suggested both curiosity and caution. "Sarlacc, it has been some time." "Calyx," Sarlacc replied, inclining his head. "We come with something that could change everything, but we need your help to protect it." Evelyn stepped forward, holding up the data crystal. "This contains the genetic blueprint for a hybrid, a being that combines the adaptability of humans with the elegance of Zions. It could save your people from extinction." Calyx's bioluminescence flickered as he considered her words. "A hybrid? You risked the wrath of the Council for this?" "It's not just a risk, it's a necessity," Sarlacc said. "The Council's refusal to adapt will doom us all. This is our chance to break free from stagnation." Deep within the facility, Calyx led them to a secure chamber where the hybrid's genetic data could be analyzed and replicated. Evelyn watched as the Zion researchers began their work, their precision and efficiency remarkable even by human standards. As the hours stretched on, Evelyn and Sarlacc took a moment to rest. They sat on a bench carved from crystalline rock, the tension of their escape finally catching up to them. "Do you think they'll accept it?" Evelyn asked softly, staring at the glowing patterns on the walls. Sarlacc hesitated. "The outer rings are home to those who question the Council's authority, but even they may balk at the idea of merging with another species. Change is difficult, especially for a people who have lived in supposed perfection for so long." Evelyn nodded, her thoughts heavy. "On Earth we've fought wars over far less. But we've also learned to overcome fear when survival is on the line. Maybe your people can too." The breakthrough came 2 days later. Calyx summoned Evelyn and Sarlacc to the main lab, his patterns flickering with excitement. "We've successfully created a stable prototype," he announced. "The hybrid genome is viable. But more than that, it exhibits traits neither of our species possesses. Enhanced cellular repair, resistance to environmental extremes, and unprecedented neural plasticity." Evelyn felt a surge of hope. "It's everything we dreamed of." Calyx's expression grew somber. "But there's a complication. The Council has discovered your location. Veletris has dispatched enforcers to the outer rings." Sarlacc's patterns dimmed in alarm. "How long do we have?" "Hours, perhaps less," Calyx replied. "If they find the prototype, they'll destroy it, and us." Evelyn's mind raced. "We need to act now. Can we move the data and the prototype off-world?" Calyx shook his head. "The Council has locked down all outbound travel. But there's another option. We broadcast the findings to the entire Zion population. If everyone sees the potential of the hybrid, the Council won't be able to suppress it." Sarlacc's patterns brightened with determination. "It's risky, but it might be our only chance." As the enforcers closed in, the researchers worked tirelessly to prepare the broadcast. Evelyn and Sarlacc stood side by side, their shared resolve unshaken. "This could change everything," Sarlacc said quietly. Evelyn smiled. "That's the idea." The broadcast began, transmitting a holographic projection of the hybrid prototype to every corner of Zia Prime. The Zion population watched in stunned silence as the hybrid's abilities were demonstrated. Its resilience, its adaptability, its potential to breathe new life into their species. For a moment, it seemed as though hope might prevail. The lab erupted into chaos as the enforcers stormed in, their energy weapons crackling with lethal intent. Evelyn and Sarlacc fought to protect the data, but it was Calyx who made the ultimate sacrifice. As the enforcers closed in on the broadcast terminal, he activated a failsafe, ensuring the hybrid's data was transmitted to every independent network on Zia Prime. "Go!" Calyx shouted as he held off the enforcers, his patterns flaring defiantly. Evelyn and Sarlacc fled through a hidden tunnel, the sounds of the battle echoing behind them. As they emerged into the open air, Evelyn turned to Sarlacc, her heart heavy with both grief and determination. "We've done it," she said. "The Zions know the truth now. They can't ignore it." Sarlacc nodded, his bioluminescence flickering faintly. "Calyx gave us a chance. Now it's up to us to see it through." Unintended success ***. Evelyn and Sarlacc trekked through the shimmering wilderness of Zia Prime, the iridescent plants glowing faintly in the twilight. Behind them, the towering spires of the Zion capital receded into the distance, a haunting reminder of their recent escape. The hybrid's data had been transmitted, but the aftermath was uncertain. Would the people of Zia embrace change, or would Veletrus's iron grip tighten further? As the duo reached a secluded grotto where they could safely rest, Evelyn collapsed against a crystalline boulder, her body aching from exhaustion. Sarlacc crouched nearby, his glowing patterns muted. "Do you think the broadcast was enough?" Evelyn asked, breaking the silence. Sarlacc hesitated. "It's hard to say. The Council will do everything in its power to discredit us. But the hybrid's existence is no longer a secret. That alone changes the equation." Evelyn nodded, though doubt gnawed at her. "And what about the prototype? If it falls into their hands?" "It won't," Sarlacc interrupted, his patterns flaring with determination. Calyx ensured the data reached sympathetic researchers across Zia. Even if the Council destroys the original, the hybrid's blueprint lives on. Far away in the heart of the Zion capital, Veletrus convened an emergency session of the Genetic Council. The supreme geneticist stood before the other members, her expression as unreadable as ever. "The rogue broadcast has sown seeds of chaos," she declared, her voice sharp. "Reports of the hybrid's abilities are spreading, and dissent is growing among the populace. We must act swiftly to restore order." One of the counselors, a younger Zion with faintly glowing patterns, hesitated before speaking. "Supreme geneticist, the broadcast. It was compelling. If the hybrid truly possesses the traits claimed, could it not be a solution to our stagnation?" Veletrus's gaze turned icy. "You would trust the words of a human and a traitor over centuries of tradition? Our cloning methods have served us well. We do not need alien contamination." Meanwhile, Evelyn and Sarlacc found refuge in a remote research outpost run by Zion dissidents. The outpost was smaller and less advanced than Calyx's facility, but it was staffed by individuals equally dedicated to challenging the Council's authority. As Evelyn entered the main lab, she was greeted by a familiar face, Ralix, a Zion geneticist who had worked under Calyx. His bioluminescence pulsed with a mix of excitement and urgency. "You made it," Ralix said, relief evident in his tone. "We've been monitoring the fallout from the broadcast. Public opinion is shifting faster than we anticipated." Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "Shifting how?" Ralix activated a holographic display, showing a series of data feeds from Zion communication networks. "Many Zions are beginning to question the Council's decisions. The hybrid's potential has sparked hope among those who've long felt trapped by our stagnation. But there's resistance too. Veletrus's loyalists are spreading fear, claiming the hybrid is a threat to our purity." Sarlacc stepped forward, his voice steady. "Then we must show them the truth. The hybrid is not a threat, it's a bridge between what we are and what we can become." Ralix nodded. "We've already begun assembling the data you transmitted into a more accessible format. But there's something else. The hybrid prototype, it's still alive." Evelyn's heart leapt. "Alive? How?" "When the enforcers raided Calyx's lab, one of the researchers smuggled it out," Ralix explained. "It's here in this facility. And it's developing faster than we expected." He led them to a secure chamber where the hybrid was being housed. Inside, Evelyn saw a translucent incubation pod filled with a glowing, viscous fluid. Suspended within was the hybrid, a small humanoid figure with shimmering skin that pulsed faintly with light. Though still in its early stages of development, the hybrid's features were already distinct, blending human and Zion traits in a way that was both alien and beautiful. Evelyn approached the pod, her breath catching. "It's incredible." Sarlacc's patterns flickered with a mix of awe and apprehension. "And it represents everything the Council fears. If Veletrus learns of its location, she'll stop at nothing to destroy it." Ralix nodded grimly. "That's why we need to move it soon. There's a safe zone in the outer rim where it can continue to develop without interference." As the hybrid continued to grow, its abilities became more evident. The researchers observed enhanced neural activity, rapid healing, and an innate adaptability that exceeded even their most optimistic projections. Word of these breakthroughs spread quickly, further emboldening those who opposed the Council. But with this newfound hope came danger. Loyalist enforcers began targeting known dissidents, raiding their facilities and silencing their voices. The outpost became a beacon of resistance, but it also painted a target on their backs. Evelyn and Sarlacc worked tirelessly, not just to protect the hybrid but to rally support among sympathetic Zions. Evelyn's diplomacy skills proved invaluable as she navigated the cultural nuances of her alien allies, forging connections that might otherwise have been impossible. One night, as Evelyn and Sarlacc reviewed plans for the hybrid's relocation, a young Zion messenger burst into the room, his patterns flashing with urgency. Enforcers are on their way, he gasped. They've traced the hybrid here. Evelyn's pulse quickened. How long do we have? Minutes, the messenger replied. In the chaos that followed, the researchers scrambled to evacuate the hybrid. Evelyn and Sarlacc led the effort, carrying the incubation pod through the outpost's winding corridors as alarms blared. Outside, the faint hum of approaching enforcer ships grew louder, their lights piercing the darkness. As they reached the evacuation point, Rayleigh handed Evelyn a small device, a data crystal containing everything they had learned about the hybrid. If we don't make it, he said, his patterns dimming, this knowledge must survive. Evelyn gripped the crystal tightly. We'll make it. The hybrid was loaded onto a stealth transport, its systems designed to evade even the most advanced Zion scanners. Evelyn and Sarlacc boarded the ship just as the first enforcer ships descended, their weapons glowing ominously. As the transport lifted off, Evelyn looked back at the outpost, her heart heavy. Rayleigh and the others had stayed behind to buy them time. Their sacrifice was a stark reminder of the stakes they faced. The people's voice ***. The stealth transport shot through the vast expanse of space, the stars around them flickering like distant beacons. Inside, Evelyn sat beside Sarlacc, her eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the hybrid's current condition. The small creature in the pod remained stable, but the rapid development of its cells and neural networks suggested that it was far from ordinary. It was adapting, growing faster than any living organism Evelyn had ever encountered, even in Earth's most cutting-edge laboratories. We have to make sure the Council doesn't track us, Evelyn said, her voice strained as she kept an eye on the proximity scanner. Once they know we have the hybrid, they'll stop at nothing to get it back. Sarlacc's bioluminescence flickered thoughtfully, his sharp eyes scanning the data. We've already switched our communications and navigational signals multiple times. But the real danger comes from the network of spies the Council has infiltrated. If any of them catch wind of our location, they'll inform Veletris immediately. Evelyn bit her lip, trying to keep the anxiety at bay. Then we'll need to keep moving. No stops until we reach the outer rim. The ship's engines hummed steadily, the only sound in the quiet cabin. Sarlacc seemed lost in thought, his glowing patterns shifting gently in the dim light. It had been a tense few days since their escape from the research outpost, but every moment of peace only brought the reality of the situation crashing down harder. Do you think it's enough? Evelyn asked after a long pause, her voice low. The broadcast, the hybrid, the people of Zia, will they rise up? Will they stand against the Council? Sarlacc turned toward her, his expression unreadable. They've already begun to question the Council's authority. The broadcast triggered something, hope, yes, but also anger. Zions have grown tired of stagnation, of being locked in a genetic prison of their own making. Evelyn's heart swelled with a bittersweet feeling. And yet there are still those who will resist, who believe in the purity of the old ways. Sarlacc nodded. The Council's control is absolute, but not unbreakable. If the people see the truth of the hybrid, if they understand what we could become together, they may choose to rise. But it won't be easy. Veletris will fight to preserve her vision. Days passed as they made their way deeper into the uncharted regions of space. The transport system had to remain hidden, as even the most obscure pathways in the galaxy were not free from the Council's surveillance. Their goal was clear: to reach the outer rim, where they would find a network of independent allies capable of protecting the hybrid and broadcasting its potential to the rest of the galaxy. As they approached the outer edge of the galaxy, an unexpected signal cut through the ship's comm system, crackling to life. "This is Commander Sarek of the Free Zion Forces," a voice echoed over the speaker. "We've been tracking your transport. We know what you carry and we offer you sanctuary. Come to us and we'll ensure the hybrid's safety." Evelyn's eyes met Sarlacc's, a surge of hope flooding her chest. The Free Zion Forces were a ragtag coalition of rebels and dissidents, fighting for freedom from the oppressive regime of the Genetic Council. She had heard whispers of them, but to make contact was a game-changer. "Do you trust them?" Evelyn asked, her voice steady but tinged with uncertainty. Sarlacc paused, considering. "The Free Zion Forces have fought against the Council for years. If they are offering us sanctuary, they must believe in the cause. We don't have many options left." The journey to the Free Zion Forces base was perilous, but with the stealth systems running at full capacity, they managed to slip past several Council patrols. The base was located in an isolated nebula on the outermost edge of Zia's space, a place where the Council's reach was weakest. When they arrived, Evelyn was struck by the sight of the base. Unlike the gleaming towers of the capital, The Free Zion Force's stronghold was a sprawling network of underground bunkers and makeshift laboratories. The ships were old, the structures hastily assembled, but there was an undeniable sense of purpose in the air. As Evelyn and Sarlacc disembarked, they were met by Commander Sarek, a tall, angular Zion with deep red bioluminescence. His eyes were sharp and his presence radiated authority. Behind him stood a group of his soldiers, armed and ready for anything. "You've brought the hybrid," Sarek said, his voice low and commanding. Evelyn nodded, holding the pod carefully. "It's more than just a new life form, it's a symbol. The beginning of a new era for Zia." Sarek studied the pod for a long moment, his gaze intense. "We've heard the stories, seen the broadcast. The people are stirring, but it's not enough. The Council still controls too much. We'll need more than just hope to break their hold on Zia." Evelyn stepped forward, her eyes meeting his. "Then we give them more. We use the hybrid's power to unite us all. We show the Zions the truth, their future is here in this new form where they can evolve and survive." Sarek's eyes flickered with something akin to admiration. "You speak like one of us, Dr. Carter. Perhaps we have underestimated humanity's ability to inspire change." Sarlacc spoke next, his tone firm. "The hybrid represents the future, but we need the people's voice to be heard across all of Zia. If we can amplify the broadcast and reach the masses, we can break the Council's grip." Sarek nodded sharply. "We've been preparing a broadcast of our own, a signal that will flood Zia's communications network with the truth. With your help, we can broadcast the hybrid's abilities to every corner of the planet." As preparations for the broadcast began, Evelyn worked alongside the Free Zion Force's technicians to refine the data, ensuring the hybrid's potential would be presented in the most compelling way possible. The Zion scientists who had joined the rebellion were astounded by the hybrid's rapid development and unprecedented abilities. As they studied its genetic makeup, they realized that the hybrid wasn't just a bridge between species, it was the key to a new form of Zion evolution. The broadcast was set to begin in just hours. But as the team finalized their plans, Sarlacc approached Evelyn with a concerned look. "There's something I haven't told you," he said, his voice low. "The Council is not just watching Zia. They have agents in the Outer Rim. They'll come for us." Evelyn's heart sank. "Then we'll need to make sure the broadcast goes out before they can stop us." The clock ticked down as the broadcast system powered up. Evelyn stood alongside Sarlacc, her gaze fixed on the control panel as they prepared to release the signal. Every moment felt like a lifetime. "This is it," Evelyn said, taking a deep breath. "Let's make them hear us." The signal shot out into the stars, a powerful wave of information that spread across Zia's network. The hybrid's image appeared in every home, every screen, every corner of the planet. The Zions saw it, the promise of a future they could no longer ignore. The final stand ***. The hybrid's image flickered across the sky like a beacon of hope, drawing the attention of millions. Across Zia's vast cities, the broadcast pierced through every communication channel, reaching even the most remote colonies. For the first time in centuries, the Zions saw a new possibility, a future that defied the Council's oppressive grip. Evelyn stood at the heart of the Free Zion Force's base, her hands trembling as she watched the broadcast spread across the planet. The hybrid's form, glowing with a light that was both human and alien, symbolized everything they had fought for, the fusion of their species' potential, the bridge between stagnation and evolution. "This is it," Sarlacc said, his voice filled with quiet pride as he watched the data streams flowing from the control panel. "It's in the people's hands now." Evelyn nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. She had hoped this moment would come, but the reality was more intense than she had imagined. The hybrid was no longer just a scientific anomaly, it was the spark that could ignite a revolution. Far from the Free Zion Force's base, in the heart of the Zion capital, Veletris watched the broadcast with a cold, calculating gaze. The hybrid's image was everywhere now, and the once pristine walls of the Genetic Council's headquarters seemed to tremble under the weight of the rebellion that was unfolding. Veletris clenched her fists, her bioluminescence flaring angrily. This cannot be allowed to continue," she muttered, her voice laced with venom. "The hybrid must be eradicated." She turned to her closest advisors, high-ranking members of the Council who were still loyal to her cause. "Prepare the enforcers. We strike now." Her advisor, a tall, silver-patterned Zion named Viros, bowed low. "Your will be done, Supreme Geneticist. The enforcers are ready for a full-scale assault. We will eradicate this rebellion before it spreads." Back at the Free Zion Force's base, Evelyn was pacing nervously, her mind racing with what could come next. The hybrid, still contained in its incubation pod, had grown stronger with each passing day, its neural patterns more complex, its energy levels more intense. It was only a matter of time before it could fully integrate into society, and that terrified the council. Evelyn, Sarlex's voice broke through her thoughts. We need to prepare. They will come for us soon. Evelyn turned to face him, her eyes dark with resolve. We can't let them destroy everything we've worked for. The hybrid has to survive. The people need to see what it can do, what we can become. Sarlex's glowing patterns shifted in thought. And they will. But we may not have the luxury of time. The enforcers are coming. We need to move the hybrid to the outer rim before they can trace it here. Ralix, the Zion geneticist who had helped develop the hybrid, stepped forward. We've already prepared a series of secure transports. We can move the hybrid to a more secure location in the next few hours. As they began preparing for the relocation, the rumble of distant enforcer ships grew louder, signaling the arrival of the Council's forces. The skies above the base darkened as a fleet of sleek enforcer vessels descended, their black hulls gleaming with the cold efficiency of military might. We don't have much time, Ralix said urgently. We need to evacuate now. The tension was palpable as everyone worked to secure the hybrid and load it onto the transport. Evelyn helped, her hands moving quickly, though her mind remained focused on the larger picture. She knew the hybrid had the potential to change everything, but now they had to ensure it survived long enough for that change to take place. We'll fight if we have to, Sarlex said, his voice calm but firm. But our first priority is the hybrid. Just as the last of the transport ships powered up, the first enforcer craft arrived, their weapons glinting menacingly in the dim light. The Free Zion Forces fighters immediately scrambled, their engines roaring as they prepared to defend the base. Evelyn and Sarlex boarded the transport ship, the hatch closing behind them with a hiss. The hybrid's pod was securely fastened, but Evelyn could sense the weight of their mission bearing down on her. They couldn't afford to fail. The transport ship lurched as it took off, cutting through the atmosphere and into space. But the enforcers weren't far behind. A series of warning signals blared as the enforcer fleet locked onto their ship. We've got company, Sarlex said, his voice a low growl. Brace for impact. The ship shook violently as enemy fire struck, but the shields held strong. However, the enforcer fleet was relentless, launching a barrage of energy blasts designed to cripple their engines. The transport's evasive maneuvers grew more desperate as it weaved through the oncoming fire. Evelyn gritted her teeth, her hands gripping the console. We need to shake them off. Now. Sarlex's glowing patterns flared with intensity as he interfaced with the ship's systems. I'm rerouting power to the engines. Hold on. The ship surged forward, narrowly avoiding another blast. The sudden burst of speed allowed them to break free from the initial assault, but the enforcers were closing in fast. Evelyn's heart pounded as the transport hurtled toward the nebula that was their destination. The shimmering clouds of gas and dust ahead would provide cover, but they needed to reach it first. Almost there, Sarlex said, his voice strained. Just a little longer. The enforcers weren't giving up. Their ships were fast and they were relentless. Energy blasts rang out again, striking the ship's outer hull. Sparks flew and the transport shuddered under the pressure. We won't make it at this rate, Evelyn muttered, her mind racing. We need to fight back. Sarlex's eyes met hers, his bioluminescence glowing brighter. We'll make it, he said, his voice filled with the unshakable certainty that had carried them this far. Trust me. Evelyn took a deep breath and nodded. She had to trust him. They couldn't stop now. The ship lurched again, but this time it wasn't enemy fire. It was something else, something stronger. Sarlex had engaged the hybrid's dormant abilities, tapping into its potential to enhance the ship's systems. The energy readings spiked, and the ship surged forward faster than ever, rocketing into the protective cover of the nebula. The enforcer ships hesitated at the edge of the gas clouds, their sensors scrambling to lock onto the transport. For a moment it seemed like they had made it. But then the voice of Veletris crackled over the ship's comm system. You cannot run from us forever, she said, her voice cold and unforgiving. The hybrid will be destroyed. And so will you. The last battle ***. The nebula ahead glowed with an eerie light, swirling clouds of gas and dust creating a shimmering veil that promised temporary refuge. The transport's hull groaned under the strain, the constant barrage of enforcer fire reverberating through the ship. Evelyn's heart raced, every second feeling like a lifetime as they darted through the twisting paths of the nebula. The hybrid's pod was secured in the rear, its glowing form pulsating with energy, but Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. "They're not giving up," Sarlacc said, his voice tight with concentration as he worked to maintain control of the ship's systems. The nebula's interference made it difficult to navigate, and the enforcer ships were closing in with relentless speed. Evelyn leaned over the control panel, her fingers hovering above the comms. "We can't outrun them forever. We need to turn the tables." Sarlacc's glowing patterns shifted in thought. "We have one option, but it's risky. The hybrid, its abilities, it's powerful, but we haven't fully tested it yet." Evelyn's gaze turned to the pod at the back of the ship. The hybrid had evolved beyond what any of them had expected, developing abilities that were far beyond the reach of normal Zion biology. It was a living weapon in its own right, but it was still an unknown. Could they really trust it to turn the tide? "We don't have a choice," she said, determination hardening her voice. "If the Council finds us, everything we've fought for will be destroyed." The ship's engines hummed as Sarlacc interfaced with the hybrid's pod, connecting its neural networks to the transport systems. The atmosphere in the ship shifted, a pulse of energy rippling through the vessel. Evelyn felt the change in the air, a surge of power emanating from the hybrid, and for a moment she wondered if it could truly be the answer they needed. "Ready?" Sarlacc said, his voice steady. "Engaging the hybrid's abilities now." Evelyn braced herself as the transport surged forward, its velocity spiking as the hybrid's energy began to enhance the ship's systems. The nebula around them seemed to distort, and the ship slipped between the gas clouds, moving faster and more smoothly than before. The enforcer ships, closing in on them, suddenly found themselves unable to track the transport's new trajectory. "We're losing them," Evelyn whispered, her eyes wide in disbelief. But it was only temporary, the enforcers would adapt. "Not for long," Sarlacc said, his fingers working furiously over the controls. "But we have an opening. I can initiate an attack that will buy us time. It won't be enough to stop them, but it will slow them down." The ship trembled again as Sarlacc activated the hybrid's full capabilities, the ship's weapons systems flaring to life with a force that was unprecedented. Energy blasts from the hybrid pulsed out from the transport's exterior, lancing through the nebula with precision and power. The enforcers, unable to react in time, took direct hits, their ships veering off course as their shielding systems overloaded. "We've bought some time," Sarlacc said, his voice thick with effort. "But we're not out of danger yet." Evelyn's heart pounded as the transport tore through the nebula, avoiding the debris and damaged enforcer ships. But she knew this moment was just a brief respite. The Council's forces would regroup, and the battle would rage on. "We need to get to the outer rim," Evelyn said, turning to Sarlacc. "There's a secure network there that can help us, our allies." "We're not going to make it without their help," Sarlacc agreed. "But we can't afford to wait for reinforcements. If we make it to the outer rim, we can bring the entire galaxy into this fight." But just as the transport was beginning to gain ground, a shadow loomed ahead, an enforcer command ship, larger and more menacing than anything they had encountered so far. It moved into their path, its massive hull blocking their escape. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. "This is it." Sarlacc gritted his teeth. "We can't outrun it. This ship is too heavily armed. We'll need to fight." The enforcer command ship loomed large on the transport scanners, its weapon systems already powering up. The hybrid's abilities had given them a chance to evade the initial wave of enforcers, but this was different. The command ship was designed for combat, and it would take everything they had to stand a chance. The transport's shields flared as the first round of enemy fire slammed into them, but it held strong. Sarlacc worked swiftly to divert power to the ship's main weapon systems, while Evelyn monitored the hybrid's progress. "This is it," Evelyn muttered, eyes scanning the control panel. "We've got one shot." Sarlacc's glowing patterns pulsed faster, his focus absolute. "We need to disable their weapons first. If we don't, they'll tear us apart." Evelyn's fingers danced over the controls, and the transport's weapon systems responded, launching a series of calculated shots at the enforcer ship's weapons arrays. The blasts hit their mark, causing the command ship's main cannons to flicker and sputter, unable to fire at full strength. "We're through the first phase," Sarlacc said. "But the command ship's hull is too reinforced for us to penetrate easily." Evelyn's heart raced. "We need the hybrid." Sarlacc hesitated for a moment. "Its abilities are still unstable. But if we unleash it fully, we might have a chance." With a final surge of energy, Sarlacc activated the hybrid's full potential. The ship's system seemed to come alive as the hybrid's neural network intertwined with every part of the transport. The power output shot up exponentially, the hybrid's energy flowing through the vessel like a living force. Outside, the nebula shifted as a new energy field enveloped the ship, and the transport shot forward with blinding speed. The Enforcer command ship's weapon system struggled to adjust, unable to track the transport's sudden acceleration. In a single, precise maneuver, the hybrid's power was used to guide the transport directly to the heart of the command ship. Evelyn felt the ship tremble as it rammed into the enemy vessel's weak spot, a flash of light erupting as the force of the impact shattered the command ship's defenses. The Enforcer ship listed, its hull cracking and splitting apart under the relentless assault. But even as the transport pulled away from the wreckage, more Enforcer ships arrived, swarming like vultures around the crippled command ship. Evelyn gritted her teeth. "We've done it, but we're not finished yet." Sarlex's voice was grim. "We've given them something to think about. But this battle is far from over. The Council will send more forces." Evelyn nodded, her resolve hardening. "Then we'll keep fighting. The people of Zia deserve this future. And we won't let the Council stop us." As the transport raced toward the outer rim, the hybrid's potential continued to unfold, its power a beacon of hope for all who sought freedom. The war was far from over, but the fight had shifted. The people of Zia were watching, waiting for their chance to rise. A new dawn ****. The transport ship, now heavily damaged but still intact, sped toward the outer rim, its engines powered by the hybrid's raw energy. The nebula ahead was beginning to dissipate, giving way to the vast emptiness of space. Behind them, the wreckage of the Enforcer command ship floated like a grim reminder of the battle they had just fought, and won. But Evelyn knew it wasn't over. This victory was only the beginning. "We've shaken them off for now," Sarlacc said, his voice strained but hopeful. "But we can't afford to rest. The Council will be mobilizing everything they have." Evelyn nodded, her mind already planning their next move. "We need to reach the outer rim. Our allies there can help us spread the message. We need to make sure the entire galaxy sees what the hybrid represents." Rayleigh, who had been monitoring the hybrid's energy output, stepped forward. His bioluminescence was dim, showing the toll the battle had taken on him. "The hybrid's abilities are evolving. It's much more than a weapon now. Its neural network is expanding rapidly. It's not just adapting to the ship's systems, it's connecting to the energy grid of the surrounding space." Evelyn's eyes widened. "It's linking with the environment?" Rayleigh nodded gravely. "It's learning at an exponential rate. If we're not careful, it could draw the attention of every sentient species in this sector." Sarlacc turned to her, his expression hardening. "It could become the most powerful force in the galaxy. But the question is, will it remain on our side?" Evelyn glanced back at the hybrid's pod, which was glowing with an eerie blue light, pulsing rhythmically. "We've seen what it can do. It has the potential to change everything, but it can also destroy everything. We need to control it to make sure it becomes a tool for freedom, not a weapon of destruction." The hybrid's energy signature flickered, and for a moment, it felt like the entire ship was vibrating with a strange resonance. Evelyn's pulse quickened, but she forced herself to stay calm. If the hybrid truly was evolving at the rate Rayleigh suggested, they were playing with forces they barely understood. "We'll need to go to the edge of the outer rim, where there's less interference," Sarlacc said, refocusing on the immediate task. "There's an abandoned station there where we can regroup and plan our next move." As the transport approached the abandoned station, an eerie quiet settled over the crew. The station was a relic of the old war, long since forgotten and abandoned by the Council. It was the perfect place to lay low for a while, to catch their breath and plan their next steps. But Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that the hybrid was calling to something beyond their control. The transport docked with the station, and the crew disembarked, moving cautiously through the darkened corridors. The station was cold, its systems barely operational, but it offered a much-needed respite. The hybrid's pod was carefully unloaded, and they placed it in the center of a makeshift command room. "This is where we regroup," Sarlacc said, his voice low but filled with resolve. "We have allies in the outer rim. They'll help us get the word out." Rayleigh was already analyzing the hybrid's data, his eyes flickering with concern. "It's adapting to the station's energy grid. This is far beyond anything we anticipated. If it continues at this rate, it could reshape the fabric of space itself." Evelyn stepped closer to the pod, her gaze fixed on the glowing form within. "I know. But it's not just a weapon, it's a chance. We've seen what the Council has done, the way they've controlled everything. The hybrid represents freedom. It represents the future." Sarlacc approached her, his expression serious. "But that future is uncertain. We don't know what it will become. And the Council will never let it stand. It wasn't long before their message began to spread. The encrypted broadcast they sent out from the abandoned station reached the farthest corners of the outer rim. The hybrid, still evolving, was at the center of the message. It was no longer just a weapon. It was a symbol of resistance, of evolution, of a future beyond the Council's control. Across the galaxy, in the hidden pockets of rebel forces, the message was met with mixed reactions. Some saw the hybrid as a godsend, a chance to overthrow the genetic oppression of the Council. Others saw it as a threat, an uncontrollable force that could bring about the end of everything they knew. But for Evelyn there was no question. She had seen the potential in the hybrid, and she believed that it could be the key to uniting the galaxy, if they could control it. The days turned into weeks, and the crew of the transport continued to plan their next move. They knew that the Council's forces would be closing in, but they also knew that their message was resonating with the people. In secret meetings across the galaxy, leaders of the resistance rallied around the hybrid, seeing it as their chance to finally break free from the Council's iron grip. Then one day they received word from a distant ally, an influential leader who controlled a fleet of ships in the far reaches of the Outer Rim. The message was simple: "We're with you. The Council's time is over." It was a moment of triumph. The hybrid had ignited something far bigger than themselves. The resistance was no longer a scattered few, it was a unified front, ready to take on the Council and fight for a future where they would no longer be controlled by the laws of genetics. But as the resistance began to mobilize, a new challenge arose. Veletris, the Council's supreme leader, had not been idle. Her forces were vast, and she would stop at nothing to destroy the hybrid, and anyone who stood in her way. "We've underestimated her before," Sarlacc said, his voice filled with quiet anger. "But we won't do it again." Evelyn stared at the distant stars, her mind working. "We'll be ready. This time we fight for everything." The resistance gathered its forces, each ship, each fighter, a testament to the determination of those who refused to bow to the Council's tyranny. The hybrid, now fully awakened and more powerful than ever, was their symbol, their weapon and their salvation. The war for the future of Zia, and perhaps the galaxy itself, was about to begin. The hybrid had been unleashed and there was no turning back. The Council would come. But this time the people would stand united and they would fight not just for survival but for freedom. The end. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe for more exciting HFY stories. Your support means the world to us. And make sure to tap the bell icon so you never miss an update. Stay tuned for our next adventure, and until then, keep exploring the stars. See you in the next video.